Hello. I am starting a new set of lessons for the people who are brand new to Dart. And I noticed that, we have this Flutter course, and some people are brand new to programming, and I think things are going to move pretty quickly. So I was thinking it could be helpful to have some kind of more elementary or introductory programming lessons around the Dart programming language, which would assume no prior experience, and you could work through step by step to progressively learn all the aspects of the language. So I'm going to start doing these recordings, and there's a website that goes along with this, so you can practice things you've learned, and you don't have to install anything on your computer. You can just use a web browser and just follow along with these instructions. And in fact, if you're watching this video, you may be at the website already. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm taking some inspiration from this book called The C Programming Language. I think I've had this book. This book was printed in 1978. I think I got my copy in 1983. This is the book that taught me how to program in the C programming language, and C was used for programming things like Unix and all the Unix libraries, and also like some of my first work at Microsoft, which was Microsoft Excel. We wrote that in the C programming language. So anyway, so the book is kind of a classic, and it goes through, I think it's a very understandable set of lessons, and I think I'm going to follow a little bit of the structure that goes along in this book, except applying it to the Dart programming language instead. So let's take a look. So this is how, this is literally the very first episode of this, and the goal of this first lesson is just to get you to write a Dart program, and you're going to execute it and understand what the different parts do. So I'll let you read this on your own, but the idea is that this is the whole program right here, these lines. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this thing called a DartPad, which is a embedded little text editor or IDE that you can use to type in all of your code. And to do that, you just click on the left side of the box here, and you see you get a little cursor on next to the line number. And what we want to type is exactly these lines up here above. So I'll do that now. Void main, open paren, close paren, right curly brace, and I hit enter. Now if you notice on the bottom, I haven't finished my program yet, but the DartPad is already looking at my code and saying, you're missing some stuff, because I'm not done writing this is not a valid program just yet, so it's telling me what the problems are. But you can just ignore that. And I'm going to print hello world. And then that's the closing curly brace. And all the messages went away because that looks like a good program to the Dart program. And we'll go ahead and run it. And watch the right-hand side here when I hit the run button. There we go. Hello world. It compiled our program, which means it took the text that we wrote and it converted it into a form that the computer could actually run, and then it ran it in the right-hand side here, and you get the console output. So the idea behind this program, the first line is defining a function called main. And the way Dart runs is it looks for you can have a whole bunch of different named functions in your program, but it's going to find the one called main, and that's the one it'll start with, and it'll execute that program. And all the other functions that get called in your program have to be called from this main, or it will call functions which then in turn call other functions and things like that. So main is the starting point for a Dart program, and it was the same in C. C used the same idea. Then if you look at and the word void here, that just means that the function is not going to return a value. If it were going to return, some value to the person, to the thing calling it, it would have to declare what that is. But void means not going to return a value, and it's fine because when Dart executes the main function, it doesn't care what the return value is, so it doesn't look at it anyway. So we can just say void. Our program just has one line inside this function. It's the print function. So we're calling a built-in function that's provided by Dart called print. And you don't have to do anything else to get access to that function. It's just included. And then we're passing in a string. A string is just a sequence of characters. So we put them in quotes, and that is a string value. And so that is being passed as a parameter to the print function. So functions take arguments, or sometimes called parameters. You can take 0 or 1 or 2 arguments, and then they sometimes return values, and sometimes they just do things. So in this case, we're not using the value of print, we're just having it do something. And the thing that print does is it writes things onto the console. So we want to write this string onto the console, and that's what it did over here when it ran it. And then the last curly brace, the closing, this is called like an opening curly brace at the top and a closing curly brace at the bottom. Those define the scope of the function. So the function starts after the first curly brace and it ends before the closing curly brace. And you can have nested curly braces, and those are called blocks inside your code. But this function has one block, and it will execute all the statements in order. And you could play around with this function more, like if you wanted to print other things after it, we can say print 1, print 2, print 3. I would encourage you could just kind of play around with things that you learn here. There we go. And notice it prints them in order. So when it executes your program, it executes them line by line by line. It does the first line, and then it does the second line, and then the third line, and then the fourth line, and then it's done, and it quits. So, and then there's some stuff down here below the exercise where I explain all the things I just explained to you just now, and that is the first exercise. If you go ahead and type that in yourself, and you will have created your first Dart program.